This photograph shows a view of the process of the installation of the sewage treatment plant, looking from the west side of the property due east. This again was taken 2003, early part. The vertical pipework that you see leaning against the southern boundary hedge line, and the pipework mid picture to the left of the picture are the PVC pipes used to take the sewage inlet from the dwelling at the raised level through the raised ground to the inlet point of the chamber. Those large ones that you see vertically leaning against the southern boundary hedge line were the ones that were used to form the herringbone soakaway system within the new ground. You wouldn't get a soakaway system in the old ground because it's too waterlogged, but nonetheless that was the system that I chose to install. The system has got full Environment Agency approval. It's even got a discharge point approval into the ditch that's to the south side of that boundary hedge. But I chose also to put in a herringbone soakaway system, so only at extreme flow times and extreme flood situations would you get any discharge from the sewage treatment plant into the environment. But those sewage treatment plants are Clydesters, and the discharge condition of the effluent more than adequately meets Environment Agency requirements and current day requirements with regards to effluent discharge into the environment. This system could not have been installed in the old ground. I have to make that point quite strongly because Chester City Council were well aware of the application, even though I didn't need to make one. Notably, they didn't return the application or send the feedback, but it wasn't necessary to put in an application because it had full discharge consent of the Environment Agency, and it's not a system that needs planning permission anyway, except if you're going to discharge into the environment. But that installation would not work in the old garden ground level of Heron Lodge, just wouldn't work. And it's questionable, as you'll see in the report from Roscom, the groundwork contractor's report, that no sewage treatment system would work in that waterlogged environment of the old ground level of Heron Lodge. This photograph is looking from Delamere Lane westwards from the front of the property, and it can be compared to Heron Lodge prior to the raising operation. This is the early stages of the development of the front landscaping, but nonetheless, if you compare this to the local authority photograph taken in 1998, it can be seen that there is no interference whatsoever with the local landscape, because taken from exactly the same position as the 1998 photograph, and this one is at the conclusion of the first stage of the raising of the building and at the conclusion of the first stage of landscaping. Again, it makes a point of showing that the parking of a vehicle and the parking of a caravan is on raised ground. There's no danger of that external property, the car and the caravan, being affected by flood water and being damaged by flood water. So the prevention of damage by flooding is extensive. It covers the whole of the property, and I emphasize the word property. As a further example of the protection of the property, this photograph taken by me is looking due south down Delamere Lane from the front raised garden area of Heron Lodge. In actual fact, this is the opposing view of Denomere Lane to that that's contained in Chapter 3, where the boat is accessing the property coming up Denomere Lane in flooded conditions. And you can see that the extent of the flooding throughout the whole of the landscape of the area. To the right of the picture you can see the caravan again on raised ground, and this has taken approximately the same time as, well, I would say this is probably towards the end of 2002, but as I say, it shows the protection of the property from flood water, the protection of the external property, i.e. the caravan, from flood water, and it shows the view along Denomere Lane and just what the access route looks like when it is flooded. This picture I am quite proud of, really. It's almost the conclusion of what I had planned for the whole property from the day I first saw the old Heron's Flight as it was called then, way back in 1997, 1998. This was what I envisaged it could look like, and this is what it does look like. This was taken winter 2004/5. It shows a view of the property, if you can recall way back in the slideshow, the one where the gable end, the south gable end, was hardly visible above all the undergrowth and the absolutely poorly maintained trees and general landscape items, bushes and trees around the property. We can see to the left of the property the tree that was in the foreground of the earlier shot, but now shows the maturing beech hedging surrounding the property, albeit in an attractive winter setting, but nonetheless it shows the character has been maintained and enhanced, and in fact the housing stock in the area has been improved, because it's still a 1.5 story bungalow, which is its official title in the 1973 local valuation survey. It's still 1.5 story bungalow, but it now features 3 bedrooms as opposed to 2, and although I say it myself, I think it's extremely attractive and a compliment in the area. What I'd like to see Chester City Council do is something really sensible and put a preservation order on it, really, and preserve that historic aspect of Cheshire floodplain dwellings created at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, instead of persecuting people that own these properties. They should be encouraging them to make them better and more attractive and better maintained and better facilities, regardless of the fact that they're in the floodplain. Doesn't detract from the floodplain, it enhances the floodplain and enhances the property within it. But that concludes the slideshow. My only remarks in closing is that it has not received a proper recognition of what it is from start to finish. It's one, I might add, senior citizen's attempt to facilitate himself in his retirement, to comply with PPG 25, which clearly states that it's the property owner's responsibility to effect flood defence and flood prevention to his property. I didn't go cap in hand to anybody over this. All I asked for was guidance on what to do. I was given that guidance, namely go and see Environment Agency North Wales Flood Defence Office and get their advice, get their authority, get their permission and get their approval to anything that you're going to do to your property. And I did just that, and the documents presented and the documents that are in evidence show that I got the recommendation, I got permission, and I got final approval for all the work executed with full Environment Agency approval.